I took the air compressor out of that hole. There are 3 types of material, I guess, that an air compressor processes. There's oil for lubrication, obviously. There's coolant, that line and that line. That's the in and the out for the coolant. And then, of course, there's the air line right here. And there's two controls for the compressor. One is the gear drive, and one is the governor. So the governor is just the on and off switch. I'm going to take you over to the actual compressor and show you. So there's the gear. There's where the oil goes in for lubrication. Here's where the coolant goes in. There's where it goes out. That's the head. And the air goes in here, and it comes out there. So I'm going to explain those 3 things, each system individually. I'll start with the oil because it's the simplest. The oil goes in here. I'm going to have to flip this up. And it goes through the crankshaft, comes out that hole, goes back in that hole, and it lubricates the bearing caps at the same time. There's the bearing caps. Here's a rod and piston. And then, so it goes in that hole, comes out that hole, and goes back in that hole. So first it lubricates the back, then the rods, and then it lubricates the front bearing, and then it drains out these 2 holes back into the front cover, and it returns to the crankshaft. The second system I'll talk about is the cooling system. So coolant goes, I'm not sure if it goes in here and out there or vice versa, doesn't matter. So it goes in there, and here are the coolant galleys. See that? But your head gasket holds those shut. So there's just galleys that run around in your head, and that's how it keeps it cool. And if you look at the top of the block, the deck, see that? It's just all flat surface besides the holes for the head bolts. Oh, one more thing about the oil system. So here's a piston. So as the crankshaft hits the oil, or as it flings the oil up out of the rod bearings, oil is flung up into the pistons, and there's little holes there. You see that? And those holes empty out into the oil rings. There's an oil ring there and an oil ring there. So that's how the walls of the piston are lubricated. And actually, the reason I took this pump apart is because it was building air kind of slow, but the main problem was I was getting a lot of oil into my air system, and I was wondering why. And so as I was rebuilding this, as I was installing the rings on the new piston, you see how it's showing that the rings, the beveled edge is up? While I was looking at these, I just always like to cross-reference. See how the beveled edge is down? It's kind of hard to see it there. So I think someone flipped these rings upside down, and you see how they're only worn on one side? So they were pushing oil up and letting a lot of blow-by down into the crankcase, and I was also getting a lot of blow-by out of my engine. So hopefully that's the only problem. Okay, so that covers coolant, lubrication, and now I'm going to talk about the how the air compressor processes air. So the air comes in here. You see how my finger's coming out through there? So it goes in there, and there's some, you could call them reed valves or check valves, whatever. They, that's these right here. So it's got a copper ring as a seal, and so when the air comes in, there's just a little plunger there, and that pulls down away from that. It pulls down and allows air to flow into the piston. See that? So that goes in there. And actually, I got a 20mm socket, and I just cut the corners out of it, and they fit in there, so I was just able to pop that out with my impact. Okay, so it pulls the air in, and then to compress the air, here's another check valve, and on these, the spring is up there, and so then as the piston comes up, the intake valve closes, and this check valve opens. Some people call it a reed valve. And it just pushes the air up in there, and it comes out up through that galley. Okay, so that's how it builds air. But once you have 120 psi, the air compressor needs to stop building air. So how it does that is it does it with the a combination between the intake valves and these valves here, and the name of them escapes me at the moment. But so these valves go in here, and when your air builds up to 120 psi, that pressure goes in there. It comes up here. It flows into this little plate that's over top of those valves, and it pushes these valves all the way down till they open up the intake check valves. See that? So it's pushing down on this intake valve and holding it open. So then the reason that you have two pistons is when those check valves are held open, you see how they have a common chamber here on the intake? The air, when this one's coming up, it's pushing the air into the other one, which is going down, and then it's just cycling back and forth. So that's how everything works. Thanks for watching.